Sean.
Hi guys, welcome to the Respect the Beers Bet Predictions podcast, the third one in this series. We've got the whole team in again today. Firstly, he enjoys long bike rides in the woods, but the only thing getting let down more than his tyres at the moment are his colleagues on the Bet Predictions podcast. It's Adam. How's things, mate?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, all good. And secondly, he has an impressive record for getting to away games with his beloved Southampton. It's just a shame he's normally asleep before the second half starts. It's John. How are you? Are you well?
Yeah, fine, mate. Yeah, not too bad. So quite disappointed those stories have spread, to be honest. But
Yeah, we've got a story there about Old Trafford, I believe, so we'll have to shoehorn that in definitely at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and finally, from Leipzig to Adam Traore, it's the Diane Abbott of the Respect the Beers podcast. It's Mixer. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad.
Good.
Thanks for that intro, mate.
No worries.
That was definitely the best intro.
That got a laugh out of me, but I was actually muted. So yeah, that was
me too.
Firstly, so we'll throw over to our very own Diane Abbott for the recap. This shouldn't take long. Go ahead, Mixer. How did we do last week?
We did great last week. So it all started and basically ended on the Monday with the first game. John had Jamie Vardy, who didn't score. So yeah, so straight away, that's basically it. I'll go through the other ones just as a formality. The next game after the first one, which we didn't get anything, was myself having not Martial. Martial scored the 3 goals for Man United, but unfortunately Fernandes didn't. Then the third game was Everton playing Norwich. They won 1-0, but instead of Sean's player scoring, Keane scored. And then lastly, we had the current bottom placed player, Adam, who had Mane in Liverpool's 4-0 win. He scored, so Adam's got 1 on everyone there. So the updated scores are Adam and Sean on 9. Then you've got myself on 10 and John in front stood on 12.
Great, okay. That's lovely. Yeah, we'll dive straight into the first topic, really. Obviously, there's been a lot of controversy this week with the VAR debate carrying on, with the Spurs goal that was given. Obviously, Moyes wasn't happy about that. There was a Leicester penalty in there. There's a lot of sort of handball controversy this week. You guys for or against VAR? We'll start off with you, Adam. How do you think VAR's working?
I think VAR is actually a pretty good introduction to the game. I think what people were worried about at the beginning was that it would remove all that controversy. It's actually probably done the opposite. It's probably made it more controversial, which I think is probably not a bad thing. With regards to that decision, that wasn't a VAR issue, if you ask me. That's a problem with the rule. And I actually think the rule's spot on. If you get an advantage that leads to a goal and it hits your hand, then it should be disallowed. Yeah. So I think the rule's actually spot on there. Yeah, sometimes they're going to miss it with VAR. It's not 100%, right? You're basically still relying on humans to interpret what rules. They're seeing. And to be honest with you, I was watching the game. I actually didn't notice it either, right? I didn't notice during the game. I had to make a decision, and yeah.
So I think that goal should have been disallowed, yeah?
I think if it hit the hand, which I'll be honest with you, I couldn't find many clips to show that it had hit the hand. I did read an article saying that it had. Then yeah, it should be disallowed, right? So it's the letter of the law, right?
That's right, yeah. Because I went to the FA website, finally done a bit of preparation 3 weeks in, and put in handball rule, and it come up: any goal scored or created with the use of the hand, will it be even if it's accidental, will be disallowed. So clearly that goal should have been disallowed, So
yeah, spot on. Exactly. I think sometimes things will go missing with VAR. People get annoyed as well with regards to the offside rule. But to be honest with you, again, I think the implementation is very good. I mean, I do remember there was a goal. I think Sheffield United got a goal disallowed, and it was for like a toe. But you know what? It was the right decision in the end. Exactly. You can't really complain. Yeah. And actually, at the same time, what I'm seeing is that these things get leveled out. I remember, I think Heung-min Son, he had a goal disallowed, didn't he?
Yeah, rightly so, yeah.
And then I think
last season, well as well, that the VAR there, they got that spot on,
Yeah, and I think for me VAR I think it's a good introduction. I am not unhappy with it at all. Look, sometimes I mean, hey, I'm a Spurs fan. How could I be unhappy with it? I don't know if you saw that Manchester City quarter final. I don't know if you how can you be unhappy with VAR?
Exactly.
For me, it's a good thing. It's a
Yeah.
good introduction.
And Mixer, what's your thoughts on it? For or against?
I think the problem is VAR is so. I think VAR was brought in to mask massive mistakes. So with that, with the goal, it's not like it hit his hand and it was a massive mistake and it wasn't seen. It's a conscientious decision. Like you don't know. It's all about that one. It's all about opinions. Did it hit his hand? Didn't it? You can see it from 20 different angles nowadays, but still no one's sure. Therefore, it's not a clear and obvious mistake. Therefore, you can't change it. I think the other one was it the Man City game where the guy on the line literally handballed it out through VAR. Then that was given. That's a clear and obvious mistake. That was an easy one.
It's worrying to think though. Sorry to interrupt. It's worrying to think a year ago he would have got away with that, Fernandinho, because the ref wasn't going to give that. So again, that's how VAR works, you know.
Did the ref then not give it because he wasn't sure and let play go on? So he gave the football game, not necessarily each team, gave the football game an advantage, knowing that if it had been allowed or it hadn't been handballed, that VAR was there. Is he then relying on VAR?
Yeah, that's true.
That's the problem.
I mean, goalkeepers union here. It was a great save.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think. Yeah. Go on, mate.
So again, like there was an incident. I think it was the last minute of the Leicester game, and the ball's clearly hit. I think it was Dunk's hand. And again, in the rules, it says if the ball hits a player who has made his body unnaturally bigger, then a foul will be awarded. But again, the referee seems to ignore that rule. So I think, like you said, the clear and obvious thing as well. I think that has sort of muddied the water a bit, that quote, because it's, again, down to opinion, what is clear and what is obvious. So I don't really agree with that term. I just find that really confusing for people, you know?
I think what they've said is in the summer, and obviously it's only been here. It's not even been here a proper year yet. So I think in the summer they're going to re-look it all as well. So I think we might get, even though it's only been a year, we might get a clarification of it, if you know what I mean. So
if I may jump in though, the one thing that I would say, and I think this is just typical us, let's say English, Premier League, is why on earth are we not doing what everyone else is doing, is by having the camera on the side of the pitch. You've got one official.
We have got a camera on the side of the pitch.
Well, no, but we go to Stockley Park, don't we?
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. They've got a camera there for no reason.
No, that's not my point, right?
It was only halfway through the season they gave referees power to actually use the monitor on the side of the pitch, and I can only think of really 2 or 3 occasions where that has been done.
They're never doing it.
Game was one.
They're never doing it. Realistically, that referee is the one person that should be in control of the entire game, right? And that's always been the case, right?
Yeah.
We should be giving the referee the tools to go and make decisions, maybe review decisions, right? I think I saw the referee in the African Cup of Nations. He gave a penalty in the final. He gave a penalty. He went over and reviewed it on the side. We've all, overturned it. It was his decision, right? He was looking at it and he was, Right now we've got the senior referee on the pitch, and then we've got less senior referees on the side of, in some kind of remote location looking at the decision. I don't know why we haven't followed suit. I think, realistically, we should be doing what we saw in the World Cup, right? The referee having that single decision and using technology as they should.
Yeah.
I think we've overcomplicated it, if you ask me.
Definitely.
I mean, sorry, go for it, Sean.
I was going to throw to you anyway, so go ahead, mate.
Oh, I mean, I think back to the clear and obvious point. I'm glad you did bring up the dunk handball, because I think whereas with that first Spurs goal, you've got several different replays, like we've said, and let's be honest, it isn't clear and obvious. I really struggle to see where somebody in Stockley Park, if we're gonna use that system, why is somebody in Stockley Park then not turning around and saying, hey, that's because I don't care what way you look at that Lewis Dunk handball, it's a penalty, right? And I don't really understand why the guys in Stockley Park keep so quiet on decisions like that, because that is a clear and obvious error. And obviously for Leicester, that's the difference between sort of 1 point and 3, but potentially. Obviously, not assuming they'd have scored the penalty, and it's also the difference in terms of the bet, because then Jamie Vardy would have stepped up, and I would have had a correct pick. So
more importantly,
more importantly, I mean, like from a Respect the Beers perspective, I mean, this is a travesty. But no, I was going to mention to do with what Adam was saying. I know 3 of us sort of are at a lot of football quite regularly, and I don't the term "it's not football anymore." The chant that you seem to hear like almost too often now. And I don't know, I just think that coming from the perspective of supporting a smaller team, where actually prior to VAR, we were probably on the end of some really rough decisions where VAR could have corrected it, particularly when you're playing against some of the better teams. I think interestingly as well, like the offside rule has actually caused, do you think it's caused like a bit of a different way in how defenders are coached? Because I've seen a few, like quite regularly, I've become quite used to watching Southampton and seeing us, particularly from set pieces, just stepping up immediately. And we've relied on VAR. Like we've almost put our hopes in the hands of VAR quite a few times, and seen quite a few goals chalked off this season already. I think like it doesn't just impact obviously the refereeing and the decision making, but to an extent, if you coach smartly around it, it can be quite a useful weapon at set pieces, which I don't really know if that is a bit of a conflict in some ways, right?
I think it's brilliant now that you can, because what it does is it encourages teams to be able to go and press. I mean, if you've played football at, let's say, grassroots level, then if you've ever played at centre back, you know that, okay, let's say you're playing a really, really low level, right? And all you have is that referee in the middle. You know straight away, right? Well, we're going to drop with the guy no matter what, right? We're not going to play an offside trap. And then you go up a level, and you've got linesmen there, and you're saying, well, okay, what we'll do is we're going to trust the linesman, and we're going to try and press the game. With VAR, you can actually now rely on the smallest of margins. So you can really go and really press up the pitch now. So I don't know. I think it could even promote a better sort of brand of football, right? More attacking, higher up the pitch level of football. So
well, you go back to that Spurs game. Obviously, they scored. Spurs scored or didn't score, but scored a goal before half time. At the time, no one thought it was offside. It looked like a good goal. Then they went to VAR. It was quickly given as offside. No one had any complaints because it was offside by a foot. Mm-hmm. That's where it works perfectly.
Yeah.
Obviously, it weren't great for Spurs fans at the time because they thought it was a good, perfectly good goal. But you're going to get that. That's when VAR works perfectly. The goal scored. We have a quick look at it. It was changed after about a minute and a half, if that. No problems.
Yeah, I think VAR works so much better when you're watching it on TV as well. Like John was saying,
absolutely.
If it was at the game there and Southern scored that goal, when I first saw it, I thought he was on. So I'd have been fuming at the ground thinking, oh, we're being robbed, because you don't get to see the decision.
I mean, you don't get to see it 10 times like you do at home watching it on the telly. Exactly. You get to see one clip, one line, and it's just like, well, this has happened again. You end up being on your phone looking at it on Twitter or texting your mates saying what's going on, sort of thing.
But don't you want that kind of accuracy, right? Because I just think that, it is time consuming, but I think that goes back to Adam's point about the fact that maybe it's too many cooks, and actually we should just be going back to that system of, look, there's a monitor on the side of the pitch. Referee, if you feel that you need to use it, you probably need someone in the ref's ear saying, hey, you need to go and have a look at that. I still think that, if I'm honest, because a ref could just clearly miss something and have no idea that there was anything to be seen. And I know I'm harping on about Saints games. I'm talking about the football that I go and watch, in all honesty. But
unless you're falling asleep.
Well, precisely that. I mean, that's only on long journeys, sadly. But no, the last game that I went to, which was our last game with fans prior to lockdown, we were on the receiving end of a decision like that, where actually Moussa Djenepo was sent off, but the referee was called over to the pitch side monitor to have a look at it. He would have missed that otherwise, And in all honesty, it's like, I mean, whether or not it was a couple of months ago now, like whether or not you think it was a red card or not is another matter, but that challenge could have easily gone unpunished until later on, like if it was done retrospectively. And obviously us playing as 10 men that day, in my opinion, did affect the result. So, we could have benefited from that again, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Can I maybe just also jump in? That Bruno Fernandes dive last week, that would have been an absolute travesty. I mean, that there would have been cheat. Basically, cheat gets 3 points for Manchester United. How many times have we seen that over the last, let's say, 20 years? Right, somebody diving in the box, soft penalty, something like that. For me, it's a leveler. It's a leveler because
for me, I completely agree. But the problem with that is that it's clear and obvious it's a dive. Why is he not getting booked?
That's a good point.
Why is he not getting booked for that?
Obviously,
you can do it for too many things, but specifically for diving, because he clearly dived. But why is they not saying to him, look, he's dived, go and book him? Because what if he's already on a booking and he's done that? That could then change the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for me, Mixer, that's where I think you need to bring in retros. I mean, obviously we're moving from the topic a little bit, but where you need to bring in retrospective bans on players who are diving, because I think diving's horrible. Diving's absolutely horrendous.
I think in terms of VAR detractors as well, you have to realise that media outlets need clicks. Media outlets need to sell newspapers.
Yeah.
It was only 2 or 3 years ago, like the almost oversaturated tagline was, "We need to give our refs more help." The refs have got that help now, and suddenly it's not football anymore, or it's an absolute farce that it's taken this long to make a decision. And if you ever watch Soccer Saturday, like you always see when there's a VAR decision on that becomes a very big sort of they've gone from, oh yeah, we really need to get them some help, to, oh, this is farcical. Why is it taking so long to just make this decision? So the media do play a very, very big part in swaying how the fans feel about it, in my honest opinion, because
everyone loves a good moan as well.
Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah.
Right, we might as well jump straight into the bet now. Who's first choice this week, guys?
Ooh, that'd be me.
Ooh.
I'm looking forward to that after having to go third and fourth. But
who have you got for?
Right, so I thought I'm going to have to go back to basics here, because I don't like the idea of bottling this when I'm so far ahead. So I've had to have a look at the games that are coming up, and I think what makes it really tricky.
Games, by the way.
Oh, good shout, actually, Mixer. Sean, would you like to tell us what the games are?
Yeah, I can do. So we're recording this on the Saturday after the Villa Wolves game, so we missed that one. So the first game will be tomorrow, which will be Watford against Southampton. Then we've got Monday night's game, Palace against Burnley. Then Tuesday, Brighton against Man United. Wednesday, we've got a few games. We've got Arsenal, Norwich, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Everton, Leicester, West Ham, Chelsea. And finally, Thursday, Sheffield United against Tottenham and Man City against Liverpool, which is a great game, by the way.
There's Robin now, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
After they won the league.
Really, have they?
Yeah, you wouldn't have thought it, would you, man?
I had no idea that the title had already been decided. Did you?
What's this? What are you talking about?
No, apparently Liverpool have won the league. Did you know?
No way. Really? Oh my goodness!
You would have thought you would have read that.
I mean, Sky Sports haven't said a word about it. I mean, I'm amazed.
I can't believe I didn't get it on my. I can't even get it on any of my social media feeds. It wasn't on any of my social media feeds. This is crazy. Oh wow! Gosh, they get that one quite, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They really did. I mean, it's not like they did a 2-hour program in tribute to the team that had won the league. I mean, it's why would you do that? They're only like the 7th team to have won the Premier League or whatever it is. It's an absolute. Oh god. I could very, very well jump on my soapbox again after some of the coverage I've seen again this week, but
yeah. That could be a new feature, John.
100%. They definitely deserve it, Liverpool. You cannot deny that.
Yeah.
It was just, I do think the coverage was a bit sort of sickening. I've also got a small rant about the fact that Sol Campbell's torso got more coverage prior to the Southampton-Newcastle game than Southampton actually did. So, I mean, because honestly, you'd have to be a Southampton fan to know that they were playing that night, because Sky did absolutely nothing in the build-up to that game to explain that we actually were putting out an 11 that night. I think the coverage began. They talked about Arsenal. Sol Campbell's shirt seemed to lose more and more buttons the longer it went on, and then all of a sudden there was a pre-match interview with the two managers, and they went, all right, we're off to a break now. We're going to talk about Burnley and Watford after this, and the game kicked off, and there had not even been a mention prior to going over to the commentary team about Southampton. It was unbelievable. But yeah, sorry. It's my small club syndrome hitting me again. It does infuriate me. And then 2 hours, a few hours later, you've got like a really, really sort of Liverpool-centric team putting together sort of a love letter to Liverpool, which again has never been done for another Premier League side that's won a league title, even Leicester. And that was an incredible story. But I'm sorry. Anyway, shall I go back to the bet?
Back to the bet, yeah.
God, sorry, I've caught my breath now. Sorry about that.
Yeah, better now, mate.
Oh, just a bit. No, anyway.
This is like therapy for John.
It really is, yeah, absolutely. Right, so going back to the bet, I've had a look at the fixtures, and I think that there is a player who has not scored yet since the restart that is due a goal, based on where he is in the goal scoring charts at the minute. I'm looking at Arsenal being at home to Norwich, and I think with the best will in the world, Daniel Farke's going to need a miracle to keep this side up, isn't he? And I'm a big fan of what he's trying to do there as well. So this is not a knock on Norwich by any means, but I do see, although this isn't exactly a vintage Arsenal side, I don't see how Norwich are defensively. They're going to be able to cope with Aubameyang, and that's why I'm choosing him as my goal scorer this week.
Okay.
Even though he's playing more out wide as opposed to through the centre, I still think there are certainly chances in that game for him, and I'm pretty sure he's going to put one away.
Yeah, that's fair enough. They played well actually against Southampton. Well, Southampton didn't play that well, but Arsenal looked like they come back to a bit of form, didn't they, against Saints?
I'd say in the first half an hour, Arsenal were quite comfortably the better team. The second half, it was a lot of sort of huff and puff from Southampton without anything actually, anything significant that was really going to trouble them. So. Arsenal were efficient. They did what they needed to do. Let's be honest, they've definitely needed the win based on how they've been since the restart. So fair play to them. And we just won't talk about the bloke between the sticks.
That's fair enough. Right, who's second this week, guys?
That would be Mixer this week.
Lovely. So watching so much football in the last 10 days, however long it's been. Been watching Chelsea, the 2 Chelsea games. Someone who's really shone for me is Pulisic. So I'm gonna go for Pulisic because they're playing West Ham, and as I said a couple of shows ago, West Ham are in trouble. And I think Chelsea are are in form. Last 2 games playing great against Man City, playing great against Sheffield United. So I'm gonna go for them to win. I'm gonna go for Pulisic to score.
Nice. Yeah, they played well against Man City, didn't they? I think we've spoken about it before. I think Adam was saying it as well. They're going to be a force next season, right?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And just a little callback to the last show as well. We just need to clarify that it's Pulisic and not Perisic. The up and coming young player that Adam referred to in episode 2. We discussed it off mic after the recording, and I genuinely during the recording was really confused, thinking like, when's Perisic decided that he's signing for Chelsea? I thought I'd missed something. It was really, really baffling. But
he's going to be a bit of a star, though, isn't he? I think they spent a lot of money on him, didn't they? I think it wasn't it about
5 million or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was wasn't it from Borussia Dortmund?
Dortmund, yeah.
Yeah, he was American as well, isn't he?
That's a big signing. I think he's
Werner coming in next season as well.
Yeah.
What's the lad from Ajax that they've signed as well? Ziyech, yeah. So I think Chelsea are going to be the one to watch outside of the top 2 next year.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think they're going to be the real force to be reckoned with. I guess the point will be is Lampard good enough, right? That's the question. We don't know yet, right? Can he deal at that level? We'll have to see.
And they're not known for giving managers time, are they, at Chelsea? So.
Yeah, but I do think the early signs are good.
He might be in credit. He might be in credit there. He's got the time. The transfer ban's helped him out as well, hasn't it?
Now they've got the money. Now they've got it back. You'd think spend like they are.
If they go on to secure a top 4 place with a transfer ban in place, and granted, I know they've tied up a couple of deals prior to the close of this season, but that's not going to affect what's happened on the pitch this year in that sense. So if he manages to pull off top 4 with a transfer ban, that is brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. Right, on to the next topic. I think this topic was Adam's. It's the crowd noise versus no crowd noise debate. Do you want to kick off on this, Adam?
Yes, yes. So actually, I did a little bit of research on this as well. So apparently, the crowd noise is actually something that's been brought in by EA Sports. So I think ever since FIFA,
Oh,
yeah, interesting, right? So ever since
didn't know that.
FIFA 2015, um, they've basically been recording the noises, the crowd sounds at all of the stadiums. And in order to actually make sure that these games that we're actually seeing now have the crowd noises in place, you actually have a sound engineer, and it's basically there's no real process behind it because I've been watching some of the games and I saw I think it was the Merseyside derby, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I think there was a foul. And the player got a yellow card, and then all of a sudden the crowd started booing at him, and I was thinking, this is oh, it's actually quite a good atmosphere just for a split second. And then obviously I looked up and there was nobody in the crowd, right? And I was thinking, oh wow, that sound engineer is actually on his game, right? And then I was sort of watching Spurs versus West Ham, and it was about 45, let's say 40 minutes in, and Spurs hadn't scored, and I could still hear, oh, when the Spurs go marching in. I was thinking, wow, the crowd, they're really, gosh, I haven't seen the crowd this positive for a long time. And then you kind of realize, oh, again, it's the sound engineer again, but they're doing a really, really great job, in my opinion, to try and create. I know it's artificial, it's out of the can, but I would say it's about 90% spot on. And if you want to look into the crowd and have a look at at those empty seats, you could be fooled into thinking that this is actually 50,000-60,000 people watching. So with all that in mind, my opinion is that I think keeping the canned noise in, it could have been a disaster, but I think with the way that they're delivering it and the quality of the sound that they've got, I think it's been a massive success.
Has anyone watched it without crowd sound?
I did. I started off watching it without the crowd sound because I thought I'd enjoy hearing what the players were saying and the managers and stuff. But then I'll put on the crowd noise, and I think the first couple of games the crowd noise was a bit annoying. I don't think they had it spot on. It was a bit like a chance to go over the bar, and like 10 seconds later, as the keeper's taken the goal kick out, you'd hear "ooh" or something like that. So I was like, "Oh, it's a bit cheesy." But now I agree with Adam. I think they've got it spot on. Even with I think it's quite funny with the whistling when there's a dodgy decision and things like that. I think it's quite a humorous side to it. So,
have you managed to hear? Oh, sorry, go for it, Mix.
I was going to say, personally, I hadn't really watched it with sound. No, I've watched it mainly without the crowd, and I found it so weird, but in a good way. Like, obviously, we're all used to watching football with sound and with crowd, and I don't think I've actually, like I say, listened to it with the artificial sound as it was. So I think that's by listening to you two, that might be something I should do.
Yeah. I mean, like it's. I was watching the Villa Wolves game earlier this afternoon, and there was a really funny moment where some very choice language in a very, very distinct Brummie accent suddenly flew over the speakers.
Oh yeah.
Dean Smith's not very happy about something, But have you guys there was a game, and I can't remember what it was, but there was a game where for temporarily they got the sound wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was like someone had a chance and they played it as though like they started playing it as though it had gone in, and they clearly realised they'd messed up and had to change halfway through, and that's actually quite funny to hear as well.
But if you just take it, in isolation, how good? I mean, let's say, obviously there's going to be teething problems with everything, right? When you put something new in, right? And if you think about it, this is probably going to be the case really up until probably next season as well, right? Next season probably going to be behind closed doors. You can't imagine them putting, people, fans two seats apart in a stadium. But so they're going to get better. But if you think about the position of the sound engineer, the sound engineer is really doing some really great stuff. I mean, just think they've actually got I haven't seen what their panel looks like, but they must have a whole bunch of buttons that they need to be able to press. And when something happens, they need to be able to go and look. Okay, where's the first? Where's the whistling button? Oh, it's over there. Okay, boom. And for me, I think the having football without any sound, it was okay to begin with. I watched the Manchester City versus Chelsea game without sound, and I'll be honest with you, I was kind of over it. But by now I was over it. I kind of wanted to hear that thing. That's the crowd in the background. I think it also just shows that the crowd are a massive part of the experience, even when you're watching on television. I think also it's also probably shows as well how well conditioned football fans are to make certain noises at certain times. So you can actually tell, right?
Yeah, because I think the first game back was Man City Arsenal, I think it was, wasn't it? And or the second game or whatever. And when Sterling scored and there was no reaction or no noise or anything, I found it really quite eerie. So I think that's when I changed to sound. And even though it was a bit late or whatever, like you say, the teething problems, just having that little crowd reaction definitely makes all the difference, I think.
I think I've subconsciously sort of like just accepted it. I'm quite happy with the crowd sound. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right, on to our third choice, which is it Adam this week?
Yes.
No, it's actually you. Adam,
okay.
Adam, you're last, but you will be first on our next pod. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Apologies. Go ahead, Sean.
Okay, I've done the opposite, which I should be going really safe, like John has. But I thought, why not go for a risk? And I've gone for Andre Ayew of Crystal Palace.
Oh God.
That's not the reaction I was looking for, but
that's interesting. I want to hear before I judge you. I want to hear your justification.
Right. Okay. So I've watched both of their games. I think he's looked sharp in both, even against Liverpool. I know they got beat comfortably, but he was giving Van Dijk the run around for parts of that game. The only thing that I am a bit nervous about is that Wilfried Zaha might not be fit, and he creates a lot of their chances. So that could be. But why not? I'm going all in with a risk. So they didn't create much against Liverpool, as I say, but they did against Bournemouth the game before. I think he scored in that. He's their top goal scorer this year with 9 goals. I'm hoping he'll boost the odds up a bit as well. And he should start, unlike Tammy Abraham.
I also think Roy Hodgson probably knew he wasn't going to create a great deal going into the Anfield game. I think Ayew's a decent shout, Sean. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that's a...
And Burnley as well, they've been leaking goals. Well, they didn't last time, but they leaked goals against Man City, didn't they? So I'm hoping that Palace can break them down and he can notch, hopefully.
Yeah, home advantage, you never know.
Talking about that Crystal Palace Liverpool game, as soon as Zaha left the pitch, you could see Roy Hodgson's face. He was like, well, I think he brought on Mayer, right? And it was like, well, yep, we're done.
That's done, yeah.
So I thought maybe we're going to nick a point or something. No, it's over now. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Right then, after judging me, on to your pick, Adam.
Well, for me, I'm still in a relegation fight still, but I'm gonna probably push the boat out a little bit. It's probably a little bit risky, but I think probably Spurs' best chance of getting a goal against Sheffield United. So I'm gonna go with Harry Kane. I think he's now got 2 full matches under his belt. He's a bit like a steam train, isn't he? It takes him a little bit of a while to get going. But once he's up and running, then he seems to be quite prolific, and he seems to be quite fit and strong at the moment. So I'm going to go with Harry Kane. It looks like Spurs have got all of their creative players back as well. And they, I think Sheffield United, they've not been so great recently. So hopefully Spurs will go on to get the points, and I'm expecting Kane probably to be one of the goal scorers there.
Yeah, I'm hoping he hits form again now. He didn't look great against Man United. I think we all said that a couple of weeks ago. But he definitely looked sharp, didn't he, against, who is it? West Ham, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think it will help that he managed to bury that. Like, he did manage to score against West Ham as well. Because, I mean, there were points in that first half where you could see he looked as though he was slightly doubting himself. I'm really surprised looking at the fixtures that nobody's touched Brighton Man United, actually, given how lethal, how sharp Man United were looking earlier in the week. But
yeah, but Brighton are a bit of dark horses at the moment, aren't they? They're in really good form.
They're playing quite well.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to have used the lockdown to really, sharpen up. Actually, there's a few teams that are looking a little bit different since lockdown, I've got to say.
Sheffield United, for one, for me. They were solid at the back. They were solid at the back foot before all this, and now they're just leaking goals for fun.
Very true, very, very true. But then, were they consistent at the beginning of the season, Sheffield United?
They were consistent. They've conceded the least amount of goals apart from Liverpool this season prior to lockdown. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm just
they were
wondering if they're
winning
slow
games 1
starting.
or 2-0. They weren't free flowing scoring, but they weren't letting goals in like they are now.
I think they're missing Jack McConnell, who's one of their centre halves,
Yeah.
isn't he? So I think we talked about it last week. Their system is determined by the players they've got, and he's not changed the system. So the players that are coming in ain't adapting to the system that he's got, which I find strange because they must like train in
Yeah,
that
but,
system all week,
I mean,
you know.
I was thinking that, but I mean, if you want to play football, and in fairness to them, they do play pretty good football actually. Sheffield United. I saw some of the, it's quite surprisingly, well, to me anyway. If you want to play football, you need good players. And if you're going to bring a player into a player who can't play football, who's maybe, let's say, more of an athlete, and he's then going to start trying to play short passes and take risks that he's not necessarily good enough, you're going to pay the price eventually.
Musa Sissoko, is that who we're talking about here? Is it?
I think Sissoko is great technician. If he plays within his realm, I think he's a great little technician. But
I thought I'd get a bite there.
No, but I think sometimes it's horses for courses with football, isn't it? If you play the right tactics with the right players, I think that's what's really important.
Definitely. Coming on from Musa Sissoko, we're doing a world-class 11 this week. So I just wanted to throw to John because it was your idea. Are you still struggling? I know we was talking before we come online.
Because there's been a bit of debate as well. So we didn't. I threw the idea out there, but we never really, until like maybe a day or two ago, we never really determined whether is this an all-time world-class 11? Are we focusing on, are we looking at literally all the top leagues around the world? Are we just focusing on the Premiership? And we've ended up narrowing it down to saying that if you kind of went outside of the Premier League, like you get further up the pitch, it's like, well, Messi and Ronaldo is going to be in every team, So it would be, I guess, seeing as this is a Premier League predictions podcast.
You're not putting Danny Ings in that team, no, John.
Oh, I'll get to that. Don't worry, man. There'll be a few in there. No, I can't. I'm afraid, no. But we've opted to go Premier League, and we've opted to go for current Premier League players as opposed to an all-time. I guess maybe somewhere further down the line, an all-time world-class 11 of Premier League players could be done, and I think that probably would open up a little bit more in the way of debate. So we'll see what we've come up with, if there's any different systems. I've got one or two that I think will probably cause discussion, and then I think there's probably going to be quite a few that we're going to agree on steadfastly. So we'll see how we get on.
Yeah. How did everyone find it? I know we were saying I found it quite easy, but I know you guys were saying that you found it quite tough. I think it's back to last week though, isn't it? The definition of a world-class player.
I think there are a lot of future world-class players in the Premier League right now that are knocking at the door, which is making it very difficult. That maybe haven't stood the test of time.
Yeah, transitionally,
and they will be world class very, very soon. And I think that's where it became very difficult, because I think when we're talking about what makes a world class player, we were thinking, right, consistency, being there, available all the time, and also standing the test of time. And I think a lot of the players, one player that I think is just absolutely brilliant is Trent Alexander. I've forgotten his name now.
Alexander-Arnold is the one you're looking for.
Alexander-Arnold. Thank you very much.
Not to be confused with the pointless presenter, but nonetheless.
I mean that guy technically, the way he pings in a ball, brilliant. He's athletic. He's got nearly everything to his game. He just hasn't stood the test of time just yet, right? He needs maybe a couple more years to say, can I stay at that level? The guy on the other side, the left back on the other side, Robertson. I don't think
he's great.
I think he's great too, but I think just like when Danny Rose was playing at the top of his game, I don't think you can play football at that pace for, let's say, 3 or 4 years. I think after 3 or 4 years, you become burnt out. You lose it in your legs, and you just don't get to that level again. I would be shocked if he could continue at that level. If he could, he'd probably be one of the best fullbacks. I think
age will determine that, right? Because Alexander-Arnold, he's what, 19, 20? And he could probably legitimately still be doing this. Like in fact, in 5 years' time, he might be an even scary prospect. He could be an even better player than he already is.
Yeah.
And it's like, but with Robertson, I'm not sure. I know that he's been at Hull previously, and I don't know. I don't really know his previous clubs. I'm not sure how old Robertson is, but could he be reaching a stage where perhaps in 2 or 3 years' time he's maybe on the decline, as opposed to, like, Yeah, and I guess one of the big outstanding things of that is injuries as well, because an injury can change a player's career hugely.
Definitely.
Robertson's 26, by the way.
Right. Oh, okay. So he's sort
been
of coming into his peak, would you say?
Yeah. I'd say so.
Yeah. Saying that though, age-wise, legs. I think Adam's sort of right. Just to let you know, he was playing at Hull, and then before that, he was at Dundee, and then Queens Park.
And he was working in Asda.
Yeah.
Famously.
I think he got dropped by someone. Did it Celtic? It was, or someone like that. And then there you go.
Right. So who wants to kick us off?
Well, I think you go first, Sean.
Okay,
Yeah,
I don't mind. I can say I found it quite
It was easy.
Yeah,
Thought it was easy. Go on. Then.
Right,
Also,
okay.
state your formations as well, guys, because I think there are going to be differences.
Yeah, so I've gone with a 3-4-3.
Okay.
I've got Edison in goal.
Do you know what? I think it's a great shout. It's a great shout. Go on. Why did you choose him ahead of the other Brazilian?
Yeah, it was a flip up between him and Allison. It's mainly because of his distribution that he got in instead of him. I just think you could actually play the guy in midfield, and I know a lot of people saying that. And when they first said it, I was like, "Oh, you're joking," but he actually has the technical ability to play there. It's a joke. I think he's got a couple of assists this season as well. So yeah, definitely he's got to be in. My back three as a
sorry, just to touch on Edison. Sorry, I know we'll go through it, but Edison for me, absolute game changer in the Premier League. For me, I know people are saying he's a bit ropey at the moment. I don't really see it, if I'm honest with you. Yeah, maybe he's made the odd mistake here or there, but then the team seems to be in transition anyway. But for me, absolute game changer of a goalkeeper. I don't think any goalkeeper has probably made as big a change to the way that we look at goalkeeping in the Premier League compared to him, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got to credit Pep for that as well, because obviously when he came in, going back to the English thing again, he had Joe Hart, and everyone thought Joe Hart was brilliant. And he started bombing him out of the team, and we was all going, what is he doing? What does he know? And then you look at the difference now and you think...
Well, I think as soon as he brought Claudio Bravo in, and when he started to make mistakes, I mean, everyone was sort of very quick to jump on Pep for that. But then credit to Pep, because he just went out and addressed the situation. He just okay, Bravo's not worked out. I'm not going back to Joe Hart, and we've ended up with Edison. So
yeah, but
it's right when you've got unlimited money, though.
I was going to say exactly. He's got the money to do it, hasn't he?
That football manager cheat code, yeah.
Right, yeah. So moving into my back three, which is pretty unconventional, but it's a fantasy team, so I don't care. Aspilicueta as a right centre back. Van Dijk, obviously, he's got to be in there, and Fernandinho I'm dropping into a back three because there was no room for him in my midfield, to be honest. Firstly, Aspilicueta, I think I discussed it last week. His consistency is just unbelievable for the amount of years. Even playing against Sterling the other night, Sterling didn't get the better of him. I don't remember many players getting the better of him, if I'm honest. So I think he's definitely in there. Maybe not technically, he's not that great, but I think there's a lot of teams now that are looking at their fullbacks to attack and completely forgetting about the defensive side of it. And I personally, watching Spurs now, I'd love a right back that can just defend. So he's definitely in there. That's definitely a dig at Aurier, but Van Dijk, I think.
So just to add on that, he doesn't just play at left back or right back, right? He plays both sides, he's all across the back four. So I think that's also what you can tell from a great player. He's
versatile, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember at left back he was solid as anything. At right back he was obviously great. I mean, he's a right footer, but at centre back in a back three, he was also fantastic. Right? I think he's won titles there. So I think it's a great shout, very good shout.
It's very hard to be not just comfortable, but really, really, really comfortable in all of those positions, right?
Yeah, exactly. And bearing in mind he hasn't got great pace either, so it shows that he reads the game well as well. So. Definitely, he uses what he's got well. Van Dijk, obvious reasons. I think he's probably going to be in everyone's team. He's just a joke at the moment. And Fernandinho, I think, has been world class for the last 4 or 5 years. To be honest, I think Man City wouldn't have won the stuff they've won without him. I think he's an integral part. I think there was a part last season where he got injured, and I know they still won the league, but they struggled without him. I think Rodri's come in and he's filled that gap very well. And I think, again, what we said about Azpilicueta, his versatility to play in different positions has been great.
I can't have that from my perspective. I can't have him at centre back though. I don't think he's been world class at centre back. So I respect that. I respect that maybe he as a holding midfielder in central midfield, he has been. But I always feel when I see Man City and him at centre back, he's a bit of the weak link. He doesn't seem to have that size or stature.
Really?
Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like when I've seen him get, especially in those big games, I've seen Jamie Vardy completely mug him off for pace, getting around him. I've seen him get out muscled at centre back. It's not his fault, right? I mean, essentially he's going into a centre back position at the age of 32, right, or 34, however old he is now. So I just feel like if you were to put him in midfield, yep, I would completely agree. Putting him in at centre back, I feel like you're sort of putting him out of position there.
But when you hear my midfield, you'll know why.
Okay.
So I've got Mane, right midfield. He's going to have to do a lot of tracking back, but as I say, it's a fantasy team, so and I'm the sort of gaffer that's going to get that out of him, so it's fine. I've got David Silva on the left. Again, probably controversial, but I've just had to make room for these two. So I've got Kante and De Bruyne in centre midfield. I think, again, I'd be surprised if anyone's arguing. Maybe Mane. Is there an argument that he's not world class with you guys?
Not for me.
Yeah, I think Mane's now probably just about managed to. I think he's cemented his space there, right? I mean, he's been key in winning the Premier League and the Champions League as well. I think this year, I think we can say that about him.
Yeah, Kante's got to be in there. I think he's brilliant. Should get more yellow cards. I know me and Mix talk about it all the time.
Oh,
but it's clever. He is clever at doing it. He's clever at making.
I just don't get it. I just do. There's some players that can make 5,000 a game and not get booked, and then one player can nudge a player by accident and get booked for it.
He plays the defensive midfield position without any aggression, which I think he's such a nice guy, and I think. Point. And it's pure technique, and also he seems to have these really long legs for a short guy. So I think everyone sort of looks at him and think, well, you know, I'm far enough away, right? I'm far enough away. Oh, hang on, and then, you know, just he comes out and he comes in and just wins the ball. I think he's probably one of the best, probably the best I could probably think about in the world in his position.
Oh, definitely, I agree.
Great
player. And finally, my front three is Aguero on the right, Firmino on the left, and Kane up front. I think, again, Firmino, a bit like Fernandinho, he's so vital to that Liverpool team. I think without him, he's the sort of core of all their attacks. I know Salah and Mane get the credit, and Salah's not in my team because I don't think he's consistent enough. I think he's a great player, obviously, but there's a lot of times I watch him and I think he does some stupid stuff, like gives the ball away cheaply. Obviously, he's got Henderson doing his running for him as well, so that helps. But I think Firmino and Mane just about nudge him out. And Kane, obviously, his goal scoring record is amazing. I wasn't his biggest fan at the start, but just can't, with the stats that he's notching up, you can't deny really that he's world class. And Aguero, again, it's a bit like Van Dijk, speaks for itself. His goal record's a joke, and he's a player for the big occasion, which I think adds to the world class tag. You have to do it in the big games.
Do you think that Aguero is like one of the more, like, because I've found this when I've had discussions with groups of mates, that Aguero almost seems to be the least lauded sort of, you know, overseas Premier League legend of all time for me, because I know like there'll be different opinions, and like you've certainly got cases for like the Henrys and so on, but I don't think Aguero actually gets quite the credit that he deserves for how consistent he's been over a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think injuries have played a part in his career. Obviously, he gets injured quite a bit now, but just the way he plays football, the goals that he scores all types of goals as well. Like, you see him getting on the end of crosses on the back stick and stuff like that. I just think he's got to be in a world-class 11. He's definitely world-class anyway.
100%.
That's right. Who wants to go next?
I don't mind jumping in there because there aren't too many differences between ours, if I'm being honest. We've got the same formation.
Right.
I'm not going to speak too much about players that you've spoken a lot about, if I'm being honest. Edison is in goal for me.
Mm-hmm.
I also went Azpilicueta and Virgil van Dijk at the back. Yeah, I do. I would say with Van Dijk, it's that this was something I noticed when I was watching him quite regularly with Saints, is that there's a lot of ball playing centre halves that you find getting caught out. And I think sometimes what separates Van Dijk from a lot of them is his judgment, because there's times where he will play the ball out, he will be calm under pressure. There's equally a good amount of times where he just knows he's got to rose edit. Yeah. And he does, and I think that really, really makes the difference, because he understands defending like before he's trying to be a footballer. I guess the best way to rephrase that, he's a defender before he's a footballer.
Yeah,
I think he's magnificent to watch.
Definitely.
Now I did say I was struggling, right? So my third choice at centre back, I think I might be going a little more heart on head. I like heart over head. Sorry,
Jack Stevens.
Absolutely, man. Franz Beckenbauer himself. Yeah. No, I've gone for he is a guy that has played in a Saints shirt, but I've gone Toby Alderweireld.
Ooh.
And I think that I can see where there will be arguments where in the last 18 months that there's probably been a deterioration in form or fitness and so on. And I'm perfectly willing to accept that. I wasn't I didn't even think like Sean in regards to being able to put Fernandinho there, but I genuinely, and it's because I've got a lot of love for Toby for the year that he spent with us, and I think he's done a magnificent job at Spurs as well.
Toby's been part of some really great defences in the Premier League. I think there was a stat when he was at his peak. There was a stat that whatever defence he was part of, they had
the most clean sheets, wasn't it?
Most clean sheets, yeah. And I think that's a really good shout. I think it's a very good shout. I don't know whether he's ever knocked on the door of being world class.
I think he did when he joined you guys, when he joined Spurs. I really do believe there was something to that.
I think there was a year or 18 months where he was at Spurs with Jan, and you had Rose and Walker. I think that defence for 18 months to 2 years was one of the best defences in the league for me. And
I also think that kind of comes back to the argument from last week about if you're not able to do it over a long period of time, are you actually world class? So I can see where that argument.
Yeah. That's the only one I would probably disagree with you on so far. So by the way, you didn't mention which formation you were going to go with. By the way.
I said same formation as Sean, 3-4-3. So
okay.
It's almost actually my team is so similar to Sean's. It's not even.
To be fair,
there isn't a great deal of discussion in it. So my midfield is exactly the same as Sean's, but I noticed that Sean was talking formation-wise. Mane goes on the left for me. I think he's always at his most effective when he's coming in from the left.
Yeah, that's fair.
The right of midfield I was really struggling with, and I've opted to put David Silva there, even though I'm not sure that's specifically the position. I'm going to bring up something for right midfield, though, that I think if we're talking about, we talked earlier about potential world-class players. Adam did make a good point. I think there are lots of potential world-class players currently in the league. Where would you guys stand on not David Silva, but his namesake, Bernardo Silva? And it's like, is it a case of, is he someone that is just in a very good team at a very good time? The age that he's at, do you think he's going to blossom into a world-class player?
I think technically he definitely is going to be a world-class player. It's just the consistency with me. That's the worry,
That's fair. And is he going to play every week under Pep as well?
Exactly,
so
yeah.
We know what Pep's like for a rotation.
He will play enough to potentially get there. I think the question is he had that season last season, and then I'm completely with you, Sean. He had that season last season, and then this season he completely went off the boil. So I don't know whether it was an injury or whatever. But if he had kept up his form from last season into this season, then we'd be talking about him as world class. But the consistency isn't there for him at the moment. But he's also the type of player that is really important to title-winning teams, and he sort of stepped up that last season. This season, haven't seen him at all.
Yeah.
So
that's fair enough. Like I say, I've got De Bruyne and Kante in the centre. I think that speaks for it. I genuinely defy anyone to come up with a better duo than that for me, and I'm sure maybe one of the next two people might. Up top, I've gone again Aguero. I think we've spoken a lot about what he brings to the table. Kane, similar thing. Again, struggling a little bit because I I don't know with Firmino, and I know there will be Liverpool fans that absolutely crucify me for this. I'm just not sure whether his goal return is consistently good enough to say that he is world class. So I'm going to go. I've opted for a player that plays in not necessarily one of the best teams in the league, but is consistently producing the numbers. And I've also picked him for my bet this week. I actually went for Aubameyang. So I think actually his numbers in terms of an out-and-out goal scorer, for me, that's what separated it. I think in a couple of years' time, we're going to be sitting here possibly talking about Marcus Rashford.
Yeah.
I think also, going back to midfield, you'll be talking sort of Bruno Fernandes at some stage.
Sterling was
Oh my goodness! I can't believe I didn't put Sterling there instead. I almost want to make a late change, but I've gone with what I've gone with now. But if I was actually thinking with my head screwed on, I probably would have nudged Sterling in there ahead of Aubameyang. We'll have to see.
Definitely. I mean, Aubameyang is now. Sterling's still got a lot of years ahead of him, man. Aubameyang's on the decline now, right? He's probably got one more big contract. He's probably going to cash in somewhere now. I don't see any of the big clubs going for him. I would be shocked if Real Madrid went for him. They wouldn't pay money for him, that's for sure. They would probably take him for free.
I could see Barcelona slinging 20 million at Arsenal and just take it, because I know that's an area they've struggled with this year. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I know Braithwaite seems to have picked up a cult following, but would Aubameyang be maybe more of a fit for what they're after? I think. I mean, he smashed goals in that team for fun.
Yeah, definitely.
If I'm being honest, but I do agree. I don't think it won't be one of the unless it is maybe Barcelona doing that. I don't think that one of the huge giants will come in for him. It could be a sort of like Inter Milan sort of situation, because they seem to like picking up Premier League players at the minute.
Juve.
Maybe it depends what they do. If they lose anybody.
I think Inter Milan's a great shout. He's that type of caliber of player, right? I think Inter Milan will put together. I think he's got one more big contract in him. I don't think he's that world class. I think he's knocking on the door, but again, I wouldn't probably I'd put him also with Firmino. I don't think Firmino is either world class either. I would say knocking on the door, but I don't think he's done enough to maybe prove.
I think to close out, my reasoning was just that I think Aubameyang's put 2 or 3 seasons together at that level. I think that means that if we're going to talk about consistency, I think he needs to be in the conversation. I'm not necessarily sure that I'll be honest, I can't hand on heart say that I genuinely believe Aubameyang is definitely world class. So, but it was just sort of like, if we're working with the criteria we're working with at the minute.
Yeah, and as you say, in a slightly struggling team as well, so he has produced great figures.
Who wants to go next then, I guess?
I'll go next.
Crack on.
Yeah, I mean, like you, I think a lot of our teams are similar. So in goal, I've got Edison, again, pretty standard. My formation is a 3-4-3, and the 4 in the middle is a diamond rather than a flat 4.
Okay.
So my 3 centre backs would be Absol on the right, Van Dijk in the middle, as we've all said basically, and then my left defender, again going in the same vein as John, is Jan Vertonghen. I think like John said, apologies. Although his legs might be going a little bit now, but what he's done in his Premier League career, although he's not won anything, but we said that wasn't part of the criteria. I just think on the left side of defence, he has been a rock for Spurs over the last 7-8 years. Can go play left back, can go forward, likes to drive the ball forward. He's great in the air, and I think I can't think of many other players that I'd add there, if I'm honest.
Yeah, fair enough. I think currently he probably wouldn't be classed as world class, but I get what you're saying. His consistency that season, I think we talked about earlier with Walker and Rose. His consistency was just amazing, really, And
I think over the last possibly 2 years, well, probably not this last year, but 2 years there, I think me and you both agree that he was one of our most underrated players.
Yeah,
and probably should have been one of our better, probably player of the season. What he did, going so unnoticed. So going into my midfield, so bottom of the diamond, so in this defensive midfield role on his own would be Kante. And then I have the 2 wide players. So on the left, it would be Robertson, because he can go up and down the wing. And with Jan's cover there, he doesn't really have to worry about defending. But if he's needed to, he is there. On the right, now I was struggling a lot with the right-hand side. And I'm going to go with Firmino, because although he's more of a central player, he can play on the wing if needed. So, and the thing is, he does a lot of dirty work for Liverpool. He's one of their most underrated players again. So I think he would be the one to track back and help Speculates at the back. So they're my two wide players, and then attacking midfield, Kevin De Bruyne, which I think's obvious. Then my front three, the one on the right is Salah. Again, we've spoken about him before, and I've actually put him in the team. I think on the right, he's such a good goal threat. Even if he doesn't score, there's going to be other players there that are going to get their foot on the ball. On the left, now this is where I struggled as well. I couldn't decide between two players, one of which has been mentioned, one of which hasn't. So my two players that I couldn't decide between were Sterling and Son.
Yeah, Son's
now,
a good shot.
Where I don't think they're both on the... I don't think they're classed as world class. I think they're near it. And I think because of more goal scoring opportunities, I'd go with Son. Son does score a lot more goals than Sterling. I think Sterling's very wasteful with the ball sometimes going forward.
I think he's improved that side of his game, to be fair, isn't he, Sterling?
I was going to say,
absolutely.
I'm calling for VAR on that one, because I'm wondering statistically, because Sterling is banging in the goals, isn't he?
Lately he has, but more in the last couple of years. If you look at the stats, I'd assume that Son scored more than
Max, you know what out of you and me when you assume?
if someone wants to look at the stats while I carry on my team, by all means. But
it's okay. We'll fact check it, and if it's wrong, we'll make you apologise next week.
if I'm right, nothing gets said. That's fair.
If you're wrong, we'll just if you're right, then we'll leave it, right?
You've put yourself out there, mate. It's not us.
Yeah, and then up top I've put Harry Kane. So yeah. It's a very Liverpool and Spurs team, if you ask me. But yeah, that's my team. So my front three would be Salah, Kane, and Son. I'm going with Son rather than Sterling.
Fair enough. Like it. Adam, what's yours?
Right. Okay. I think overall very similar to some of the choices that you've made, or all of you have made. There'll be one in here that's going to roll heads, but I just want to make it very clear. This is through the entirety of their Premier League career. And
Gareth Bale is no longer in the Premier League, Adam, right?
Yes. This is the entirety of their career that they've played in the Premier League, not just their most recent seasons. Okay, so I just want to put that out there, right? So I think we've spoken about Edison, completely changed the way that we see goalkeepers. Yeah. Technically brilliant, also great shot stopper. The way these Brazilian goalkeepers control one-on-one situations as well is actually phenomenal. The way they just rush out at your feet and they get the save. So Edison there for me. Mm-hmm. Azpilicueta for me stood the test of time. Played all along the back four. Oh yeah, by the way, I've gone 3-5-2 formation. I think tactically this team would get absolutely killed. By the way, but it's just about stands up. So Azpilicueta, Virgil van Dijk. I think that's kind of straightforward, those two. But then I've gone for David Luiz as a centre back.
Oh la 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 la.
That's going to be controversial.
Wow.
That's going to be controversial. But
are you on the Arsenal board by any chance?
But hang on, right? And I'm not talking about this season. He's 34 this season, right? But he was part of a back four that won it. I think he won it under Ancelotti. And he was a strong member of the back four then, if I'm not wrong.
Who was his partner, Adam?
Well, John Terry.
Exactly. So he had one of the best central defenders the Premier League's ever seen with him.
And he was also the key.
Play well with John Terry.
He was also the key centre back. He was also the key centre back in a back three with Conte that won it that season as well. And he played in the back
with
four.
Someone else. He's not with anyone now.
He's 34 now. He's 34. Right. So he's definitely on the decline.
I'm going to have to question your strength in depth of the English language, because a current is not just something that you can have in a scone. Current means presently.
He's currently in the Premier League. Are you going to tell me Azpilicueta is still world class?
Yeah.
Yes, I would. I would.
Well, I'm going to say you're wrong. Are you going to say Fernandinho is still world class?
Yeah.
That's not right. I mean, this is over their careers, right? that we're talking about. But that David Luiz, I mean, he came in. I remember seeing him against Spurs step into midfield, go toe to toe with Dembele, and play him off the park. I think David Luiz. Okay, he's in a team right now. The midfield doesn't give him any protection. He hasn't got the legs anymore. He's got rubbish players around him. But when he was playing for Chelsea, he had 2 spells where he was fantastic. And they paid millions for him, right? I think Paris Saint-Germain paid nearly 50 million for him at the time, which was huge. Technically, he was great. And in that back 3 under Conte, he was phenomenal. And that back 3 was one of the best. I think you guys are getting blinded by the odd mistake here and there, but take his technical ability, and then on top of that, his ability to put in some fantastic free kicks, his distribution across the pitch. I don't think there's many footballers that could do what he could do when he was playing well, right? When he was in his prime in the Premier League, and he's still in the Premier League, so therefore it's a current Premier League player that's world class.
Controversial.
I would rather
Very
have had
controversial.
I would rather have had him than Fernandinho in the centre back position. So if we go into midfield, I think Mane makes it onto the right. I think this year Mane has pretty much been consistent enough, right? He's scoring goals for fun. I think that speaks for itself. On the left, I've gone for Heung-min Son. I think he's got everything to his game. I think that goal he scored against Burnley this season just shows he's got so much going for him. And in the Champions League run to the Champions League final, he was fantastic. He plays up front, he plays off the left, he plays off the right. He's got everything to his game, really. Goals, assists, top player. In the central midfield, holding, I've got Kante. I think we've spoken about that. And then just next to him, or just in front of him, you've got De Bruyne, who is amazing. De Bruyne. It's the consistency of his delivery, right? Like, I think you can talk about vision. Vision's one thing, but it's execution. Like, he not only does he see the pass. I mean, I've seen someone like Christian Eriksen. He sees lots of passes that De Bruyne would see, but he probably, the actual success rate of actually picking those passes with the right pace, getting it to their target, getting it into the right, to the right position.
Spot
De Bruyne,
on.
yeah, De Bruyne's something else.
As well, doesn't he?
He does. Well, I've got to say it's a bit frightening that Jose Mourinho couldn't see that talent actually.
Yeah, and Salah, to be fair. He let 2 of them go.
Salah, I think you could see, right? Whenever he let Salah play, you could see that Salah wasn't. He needed the right system, Salah. And
I think. Sorry, I was just going to add with Salah. I forgot to say this earlier that I do think what separates it is that I feel that Salah is somebody that you can work out how to play against. Now, I'm not saying that everyone can, but I do think that Salah is the type of player that you can take out of a game, which to me, with a world-class player, you just don't. There will be that moment where it is not going to. You can put things in place. It will not be effective for a full 90 minutes. I truly believe you can take Salah out of a game.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
Sergio Ramos did, didn't he?
Oh yeah, I mean that was in the literal sense,
He found a way that season because that. Yeah, I agree. I do agree with you, John. I think nowadays you're right. I think that season you couldn't do anything about it. I remember. I think we when Spurs went there, Salah. I think he cut in on his left foot. His close control was brilliant. But yeah, I think you're right. Since then, yes, you couldn't really stop him.
Systems can be put in place to deal with him, is the way that I would put that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying by that many people do either, but
yeah. I mean, just going back to the team. So where was I? I was at Kante, De Bruyne, and then just in front of that, I was going to go for Silva. Again, is he world class now? No, he's not world class now. But was he world class throughout the entirety of his Premier League career? Definitely. He's been amazing, amazing player. Ability to pick a pass, that close control that he has, and you get some of those players who are really efficient players, but then you've got other players who really are a joy to watch when you see them take a touch. I would say, I mean, obviously, one of my favorite players of all time was Zidane, right? And when you watch them play, when you see them take a touch, like Xavi. Iniesta, Zidane, he's got that kind of quality to him. The way he takes the ball down, the way he picks a pass. So he was a really good player to watch as well. But he was extremely efficient as well. And then I think the only 2 strikers I could think of that again throughout their Premier League career have been world class are probably that's still playing is Aguero and Kane, and that's just because they're just banging in goals consistently. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much my world class 11. Not easy though, not easy to find players, especially at centre back. There are not many world class centre backs currently playing in the Premier League.
Yeah,
think-
I agree. Yeah.
Two players that stand out that haven't come up in any of our 11s really. That if we're talking centre backs, I mean, I know injuries have played a part. Anyone got any time for Laporte in that area?
I wanted to put him in.
Yeah.
But he's been injured for too long, and secondly, he could have been like Manchester City's Van Dijk, right, this season if he had stayed fit, right? I imagine that he would have been the player that they would have built the defense around. But we'll never know, and he'll need to show that, right? So I wanted to put him in, but for me it was even riskier than putting David Luiz in, because he hasn't stood the test of time, you know.
Paul Pogba was one I thought might go.
I was going to say, yeah, World Cup winner and Graham Souness's most sort of liked player on Instagram or whatever, you know.
What about Hugo Lloris?
Oh, he's world class.
He's world class, and he stood the test of time as well, right?
I think so. Yeah. Bix will probably disagree, but I think he is.
In my opinion, more world class.
De Gea in there. Roy Keane's best mate.
The last couple of years has really scuppered that for me.
Yeah, he really has.
2-3 years ago, I think he's the first one that goes on the team sheet, right? But
I think if he had gone to Madrid, he'd be classed as world class now. But I think where he stayed in the league, where it's a bit harder for him.
What about Maguire? Maguire at centre
not
back.
a chance.
No.
Hey, they spent more on him.
no.
They spent more on him than Liverpool spent on Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going off of that, it's like, Chelsea spent more on Fernando Torres than they did like Frank Lampard. Who would you have rather have had in your team? I know it's different positions slightly, but
Fernando Torres for Liverpool, I'm not sure, but I mean, I'm Maguire. I think Maguire with a settled team, he could be something. He could probably knock on the door. He's not there yet, right?
For me, he's another in the right system. He's the right guy, but I do think that there are enough weaknesses in his game that I don't think he could do it against every type of player. I think there are certain players that would run rings around him.
Very interesting that nobody really chose a Manchester United player.
Yeah, I think in a few years' time, like John said, Rashford will definitely be there. I think Wan-Bissaka personally could be there as well one day.
100%.
And Fernandes, so I think they're definitely for the future. A bit like Chelsea, really. Right, I started off the podcast calling Mixer Diane Abbott, which I thought was quite harsh, but now I've looked at the statistics
Oh no, here we
for
go.
Raheem Sterling. Your numbers are about as accurate as hers. So we've got Raheem Sterling has scored more goals than Heung-min Son in the last 3 seasons, Mixer. So I'd like you to apologise to Raheem.
How many games have they both played?
Mixer, you've just been fact checked. Just apologise.
So
many
in
games have they played?
2017-18, Son played 37 games, scored 12 goals.
Not
Raheem
bad.
Sterling played 33 games and scored 18 goals.
That's fake news. Fake news.
He's been absolutely pretty Patel there, hasn't he?
Do you want me to carry on, or should I just...
Yes,
come
please
on,
do.
might as
Please
well.
do.
Okay, so next season, Son played 31 games, scored 12 goals. Raheem Sterling played 34 games and scored 17 goals. And
Is
then,
this just in the Premier League?
yeah, and then this
Wow.
season, he played 26 games and scored 12 goals. That's Raheem Sterling. Son's played 23 games and scored 9 goals.
I mean,
Yeah.
Sterling has had Kevin De
You better
Bruyne
be
as
looking right
past
now
him.
there, Sean.
Oh
I
dear.
still have Son though.
I'd still have Son as well, actually. Funnily enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know what I mean, like-
you've got Kev. Yeah, but the fact is, you pulled out a bad stat, and Sean's called you on it. But
hang on. I said I think. I didn't say these were the stats. I said I think.
To be fair, though,
Shows
you
you how
did
much
say
I
that
know.
his finishing was poor. So I think you should apologise to Raheem.
well,
Raheem, if you're listening, I apologize.
I mean, if you think about it, he's had feeding him with, he's had David Silva feeding him, and he's had
Very
Kevin
true,
De Bruyne feeding him. So, he could still be a bad finisher and still score more goals, right? So, I don't think we're willing to go into that.
What about his shots ratio, Sean? On
I'm
target
not-
and off target. Come on now.
I haven't got that sort
Let's
of
do
time.
this properly.
Maybe we'll have that for next week. Right, to go back to the bet.
Bet you ask, I'll be checking that.
So we've got the quite cautious choice of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. His odds are 8-11 on. So yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah, safe I'd say. Jordan Ayew at 43-20. By the way, I couldn't find the odds on Sky Bet, so I've had to do a bit of looking around on odds checkers. This is
I've only found Jordan Ayew on Sky Bet.
exactly. I think it's because the games are a few days away. So this is
Right.
with 888 Sport, so our odds might differ. But Christian Pulisic is 8-5. Harry Kane is 7-5, which is I think quite good odds. So fourfold pays 33-1. So £5 stake on that is 165 quid.
Not
No,
bad at all.
We're not going to
Yeah.
win that, are we? I think whenever it's over
Always
60
optimist,
pounds, whenever it's over 60 pounds, I'm pretty sure we're not going to win it. So
I mean, I guess what we can do is maybe when we recap this bet on the next pod, we could let you know what the actual Sky payout was, and that's who we're using. But
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think there'll be too. It won't be too dissimilar.
What we'll do is we'll throw it on our social. So anyone, guys, if they want to
Absolutely.
go on Facebook, Respect the Beers, and on Twitter, it's at Respect the Beers, and we'll put a little post up, and it will have the exact odds and what we're going to win this week, guys. Yeah, that's us for this week. Thanks, guys. Look forward to hopefully again being £165 to better off when we come back. We'll speak next week, and hopefully we won't miss a game because of my tardiness, so I apologise. Speak to you later, guys. Thanks again.
See you later, mate.
See ya.
Take care.
later.
All the best, guys. Bye bye.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.